Nowadays, Hamilton, Ohio is a placid bedroom community. But during Prohibition, it was known as Little Chicago for its hospitality to mobsters, illicit speakeasies, gambling joints, and bootleggers. It was perfect for a hideout or to hide a body. Despite the danger then, let's risk being taken for a ride on this episode of TriState True Crime.
On an unseasonably warm February day in 1931, a young couple and friends drove to a vacant cottage that was for sale on Line Road, 3 miles northeast of downtown Hamilton. The curious house hunters knew federal agents had found an illegal still there 6 months earlier and a network of secret passages. They were eager to take another look. Inside, they found a secret door leading into the pitch-dark cellar. Striking a match, they peered into the shadows and saw a dead body with bound feet. Terrified, they fled the home and called in Hamilton sheriffs. The dead man was John Marcus. Marcus was one of America's most feared criminals. His hands and feet were bound with picture frame wire. He'd been gagged with a silk shirt. A reporter noted, quote, Marcus had been dead for 3 weeks at least. His eyes were missing, his brains gone, and there was a hole in his skull, presumably made by field mice, which had chewed on his ears and nose. Close quotes. Marcus's expensive silk hat lay strewn beside the body, a single bullet hole indicating that he'd been shot at point-blank range above the right eye. A Cincinnati police officer identified the body based on Marcus's trademark 4 gold teeth, despite the ghastly condition of his decomposed body. The investigators determined the murder weapon was a .32 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver. The missing eye was a gangland sign signifying that Marcus was a snitch. Authorities said Marcus was, quote, one of the toughest all-around racketeers in criminal life. His picture is in probably every police gallery in the country, close quote. Marcus had ties dating back to George Remus's Bourbon Empire. More recently, he'd been associated with Al Capone and several vicious St. Louis gangs. Cincinnati police believed Marcus had been taken for a ride with his sweetheart, Margie Henry. The Louisville woman had gone missing. Investigators realized that Marcus's downfall began with a gangland feud with Bob Zwick, a brutal murderer who was called either the Fox of Gangland for outsmarting federal agents or Ghost for his ability to slip away from crime scenes. Tempers ran high when Zwick and Marcus accused each other of stealing trucks filled with bootleg liquor. Marcus also claimed Zwick attacked him on a trek home from Detroit, with Marcus speeding away at 80 miles per hour in a hail of bullets. Marcus defiantly told reporters that he would get even with the man the cops can't catch. The case took a startling turn in April when a Newport, Kentucky thief and murderer who went by the alias Larry Coates was picked up in Miami Beach. State-of-the-art ballistics test revealed that Coates' gun matched the one used on Marcus. However, the Butler County grand jury refused to indict since Coates was connected to Zwick, now the most powerful gangster in Hamilton. The story took a gruesome twist on July 28, 1931. At 2 a.m., an unidentified car on Wooster Road near Mount Lookout pulled up alongside him. The assailants fired off a volley of bullets, hitting Coates 5 times. The thug died at Cincinnati General Hospital from multiple head wounds. He took the mystery of the Marcus murder with him to his grave.
Wow, Hamilton, who knew? Well, as always, let's check in with the cultural historian who researches these true crimes for us, Bob Batchelor. Bob, so good to have you here this morning.
Thanks, Clyde.
Okay, so did they ever come to any kind of conclusion about who might have killed Marcus? Maybe a deathbed confessional or something, anything at all?
Well, there was a very famous reporter and historian named Jim Blunt who covered Hamilton. And in the 1970s, he reports that a source told him that Coates was not the actual murderer. And in fact, the actual murderer had just recently passed away, but neither that person nor Blunt's source ever told authorities or ever gave up who actually killed John Marcus. So it is still an open case to this day.
Amazing. Well, back to what we said at the top of this interview segment. Hamilton, who knew? What made it such a hotbed for gangsters and a place for people to hide out?
Well, I reached out to Brad Spurlock, who runs the local history at the Lane Library in both Hamilton and Oxford. He's a real expert on Hamilton history. And Hamilton served as kind of a perfect storm. It was in the right location, near the Indiana state line, close enough to Kentucky. It was also an intersection for people coming back from Detroit, loaded up with bourbon and other illicit booze. So Hamilton really became a hideaway and a playground for local corruption because there were government officials who looked the other way, and there were people that looked the other way. So it was a great location for that kind of illicit activity, especially coming out of World War I and the Spanish flu, which had ravaged the area. So Hamilton has this great history. Most people don't know it, but you can still find some great stories there. And we could go on all day about corruption in Hamilton during the 1920s and 1930s.
Well, maybe we'll get a chance to revisit Hamilton. But if people want to read more true crime stories or any of your other books for that matter, how do they connect with you?
Certainly my website, which is just my name, but you can also check out The Bourbon King, which is my biography of George Remus. I like to say that Hamilton and the local area, including Newport and the what we now call the Bourbon Trail, these are co-stars of The Bourbon King. So The Bourbon King's a good starting point.
All right. Bob, thanks so much for talking to us.
Have a great day.
You too.